ADHD Rewired, episode 551. Since 2014, this has been the podcast for ADHD adults who have really good intentions and a slightly wandering attention. I'm Eric Tivers. I'm a licensed clinical social worker by training and a coach by design. I'm your host, and I have ADHD. ADHD Rewired is more than just a podcast. You can learn about our coaching and accountability groups, our virtual co-working community, and more. All at ADHDrewired.com. We are wired for connection, and you are not alone. Learn more about our offerings, including our monthly live Q&As, get additional resources for every episode, including links to any resources we mentioned on today's show. You can support us on Patreon, sign up for our email newsletter, and more. All at ADHDrewired.com. And if this is your first time listening, welcome. Don't forget to hit subscribe or follow on your podcast app so you never miss an episode. We know that starting is the hardest part, so let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome to ADHD Rewired. I'm Eric Tivers, and it's Pride Month 2025. Today, you're listening to the recording of the second annual Neurodivergent Queer Pride Month panel organized by Shimmer, an online ADHD coaching platform that connects you with expert coaches. We recorded this on June 13th, 2025. My friends over at Shimmer curated questions submitted during registration for the event and handpicked the ones they felt would spark the richest discussion. We cover everything from masking and intersecting identities to what it means to be neurodivergent and queer in today's political climate. I will introduce the panelists here, since you're going to hear us do that in just a moment as soon as we start the session. Whether you identify as LGBTQ+, neurodivergent, an ally, or some beautiful combination of those identities, I know you're going to love this conversation. But before we get into that, real quick, if you have been looking for solutions to help with your ADHD, or you have been thinking about joining our summer coaching and accountability groups, but haven't caught my recent emails or episodes, here's the scoop. Our live registration kickoff is this coming Wednesday, June 18th at 2 p.m. Central Time. That's noon Pacific, 3 Eastern. And all the pre-registration materials, intro video, quiz, and your 45-second intro clip, which I'll explain more at the break, are due at 2 p.m. on Tuesday, June 17th, the day before the registration event. Complete them to save $200 and lock in your spot by going to coachingrewired.com. If you miss our kickoff event, your second chance registration event is on Thursday, June 26th. Again, I'll have more info at the break, or you can go now to coachingrewired.com. Be sure to get your name on the interest list so you can do all our pre-registration requirements. That's coachingrewired.com. All right, let's jump in to today's episode.
So excited today to be able to co-host the Neurodivergent Pride panel. We just have a couple of words in the beginning just to introduce kind of the two co-hosts and also why we're here today. And then we'll spend basically the bulk of the time just doing one question and then we'll all answer it. And these questions came from the community, from us polling you all when you registered, and also from past registrations, and also just community questions we've gotten through emails. So we'll try our best to answer all of them. We usually don't get through them. So depending on how things go, we'll make a game time decision on if we switch over to questions from the audience. So if you do have questions as things progress throughout, just drop that into the chat and Trina will keep an eye on it. And if there's something that is a really great question or being asked a lot of the times, you may end up near the end just replacing the original questions that we had. So Trina, just feel free to ping me at that point. But yeah, so real quick, that number 2 is going to be basically 90% of this conversation today. So I'm really excited today just to kind of frame up the conversation to talk about neurodivergent pride. But before we jump in, I just wanted to introduce the two presenting organizations of this conversation and I think this is like the second year we've done it. And I'm really excited about this. So just quick on my side, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Shimmer. We're a ADHD coaching platform. And so we basically connect people with ADHD, like myself. I was our member number 1 with expert ADHD coaches. And Coach Meg, who's here on the panel, is one of our coaches. And essentially just help people get to the life that they deserve and want, and help them break down their goals and move closer to that goal state. And I'll let Eric say a couple words about ADHD rewired, and also how, and maybe mention how this panel will also be used.
All right. Thanks, Chris. It was great to be back for the second year in a row. Hopefully this will become an annual thing. So I'm the founder of ADHD Rewired. It just started as a podcast back in 2014. Sort of stumbled into creating a whole new business online where I do online intensive coaching groups. We had 40 seasons of coaching groups. So it's a big part of what we do at ADHD Rewired. We have over 550 podcast episodes. And if everything goes as planned, this will be episode 551, the audio for this as well. So if you want to go back to be able to listen to the audio, just subscribe to ADHD Rewired, and as soon as it gets posted, you'll get that updated on your feed.
Awesome. And we will drop all of the links in the emails that come out afterwards to anyone who is in this room, but also anyone who's registered on Lumo. Okay, so just quick introduction to Neurodivergent Pride. I think if you're in this room, you likely already know, but just in case you're sending this to somebody else, we are essentially here to just celebrate and bring attention to two really special and powerful and beautiful identities. So the first one being neurodivergence. So you've probably seen that neurodivergent umbrella, all the various kind of ways that people learn and think differently, all under one umbrella. And then also the LGBTQ flags are there as well. So the queer community. And so really what we're here today to celebrate is this specific intersection that comes with a lot of beauty and uniqueness, but also specific challenges and challenges that compound each other. And I think for me personally, I think this conversation is really important because we're often left out or misunderstood, not just for one part of our identity sometimes, but two parts of our identity or even more. And so this space today is really so that we can celebrate like the wholeness and all of our wholeness, even just on this panel and in the chat you'll find are so different. And so celebrating all of those various types of wholenesses and just bringing light to it. And so that we can unmask and just be ourselves and share our experiences and hopefully see some of ourselves in the other folks in the panel and in the chat. And I'm really excited because this group of panelists is super awesome. I'm lucky to know all of them already. And so I'll let them introduce themselves. Let's just maybe go from left to right. So we'll start with Nate.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nate. I am autistic and I have ADHD. I am bisexual and non-binary, and I'm happy to be back for the second year of this panel.
Eric, do you want to add a few words to your introduction from earlier?
Sure. What do I add? So last year when I was here, I was ADHD. This year I'm ADHD. I was actually officially diagnosed with autism back in March after suspecting it for quite some time. And yeah, I'm bisexual. And it's funny because I think it could be a generational thing because I think the kids now would say pansexual, but I more identify as bisexual. That's my thing.
And I'm Meg. I'm a former teacher, now an ADHD coach, and I'm an expat living in Spain. Yeah, Eric, I resonated with what you just said. You know, maybe a lot of people would say I'm bi, but I identify as queer. That feels more spacious and more me. So yeah, excited for today.
Awesome. And on my side, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Shimmer. I was diagnosed when I was 28, and that's when I started Shimmer because I was looking for coaching. But in terms of queerness, I identify as pansexual. It's the generational thing, but that's the one that fits me the most. I think whatever works for each of us. And I came out of the closet when I was like 23, I think. It's like been a journey, but we'll get to the coming out part. But I'm really excited to talk about this specific intersection and also just literally us all sitting here and even just describing everything differently. Oh, and ADHD. I forgot to mention that. ADHD.
Correct.
Yes. Combined type, but mostly hyperactive ADHD. Okay, let's hop into it. And let's start with something super foundational. Being queer and being neurodivergent are two very powerful identities and also shift in terms of context of what's going on in the world and kind of how we view it and our own personal journeys. And they often overlap a lot, as I'm finding as well. So maybe I'll just start off with how both of these identities relate to each other or relate to yourself, however you want to take that question. And I'm going to pick voluntold. Let's start with Coach Meg.
Yeah, cool. I also forgot. Yes, ADHD are here as well. I would say these two are deeply connected in the way that like I experience the world, but also how the world has kind of responded to me. So like growing up, I knew that I was different, but I really didn't have any language as to why or what. I felt things really deeply. I was constantly losing things. Sorry, mom. Always called like too much, or even it's just like both of these identities, even though I didn't really know what they were until I did, I think that they have shaped move through life. I'm kind of like learning to scan for danger, shrinking myself and masking. But also, luckily, I reached a point that there was really a shift for that. And so I think that in experiencing these identities and that being a part of me, it's been such a teacher in unlearning shame and challenging norms and, things that I didn't even realize that I had internalized. So yeah, it's not just that I am queer and I am neurodivergent. It's really just the way that I see the world and the way that I connect things, the way that I feel things. And also just so thankful to learn to challenge shame and to challenge the norms and to see the world in a different way and to also want to offer that space to other people as well.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of very powerful words and concepts that we'll dig into around like masking as well a little bit later. Thank you for that. And maybe Nate, if you want to go next.
Yeah, I can go next. I think as I got older, I started to like realize that they're not two separate things, but they kind of like grew up together for me. Because I was like the quiet kid in class. I didn't play rough with the boys. I always hung out with girls. I would like draw pictures instead of tossing a football or a basketball. And I was always that person that would ask too many questions and like wonder why pink was only for girls or why boys weren't allowed to cry. So like all those rules, I was like, why do we have rules? Why do they even exist? I didn't like follow the script that the world told me to follow. And whenever I didn't, the world kind of just let me know that I wasn't following that. And I think also growing up in like a Christian and Caribbean household also added to that. I was told to like be the man, toughen up, and don't express yourself. And that was very hard because my brain is very different. My emotions are very different. My thoughts are scattered most of the time, and my focus just wasn't there. And so like I would always question like everything. So I think my queerness and my neurodivergence both made me feel like I was doing something wrong just by existing. But they weren't two separate things. They were the same type of rejection in like different clothes and kind of like the same silence and the same shame. But now as I've gotten older, I don't see it that way. I see them as something beautiful. They're me. They're not something I need to fix. They're truths of who I am and what I was born with. And I've been breaking binaries of gender and thinking and being and just learning to stop apologizing for it.
That was so beautiful. And I own the color pink, so I give you permission to use it too. I'm just kidding, but I do love pink to the moons. Eric, for you, up to you.
Yeah, I think, Meg kind of stumbled on just the idea of masking. When I knew that I was bisexual way before I knew that I was neurodivergent. And, my sort of coming out experience, I attempted to come out to my folks when I was 14. My, I think, well-intended father came home the following day with a Playboy magazine, which is like tragically comedic.
Right.
It's like, thanks, Dad. Do you understand I'm like bisexual? Like, I like that too. But like, and it's not just all about that. But I think this idea of, because I got the message that it wasn't okay. So I kind of like retracted myself back into the closet. And so I had that mask on for so many years. And I, as I mentioned in my intro with discovering this year that I'm also autistic, one of the things that I've been really discovering is that there's been so many layers of masks that I've been wearing and not even aware of it. If it's all I've ever known, how would I know it was any different until you've seen different? Now you're like, you can't unsee it, what you've seen. Right. So then I think from what drives me in my personality, I think there's that song from Hamilton, was it it's not satisfied or something like that? Like there's that the ADHD piece where it's like, oh, what would that be like? What would that be like? Ooh, I want to try that. Right. And the same thing true with my queer identity. So I think they're very connected.
Yeah, I love that. And I think what I'm hearing across everyone's is kind of just this rejection of the norm and the expectations. I think which actually, interestingly enough, is the next question, but we're not going to get there yet. I think on my end, I think for me, I wrote a bunch of different business school essays when I was applying to business school, and I pulled them up recently and actually found that one of them, the entire thing I wrote about like labels and boxes and how like it was a very angry message. I'm glad I didn't use it to try to apply to business school, but I was just very angry that there were so many like labels and like just these boxes that you're expected to fit into, and that my entire life, like none of the labels like worked for me. None of the boxes felt like they fit me. And it takes time and confidence, like as a kid, especially when you don't have role models and examples, especially as someone who is Asian. And I think being queer and being neurodivergent when you're Asian is like in many ways like even harder, because just your parents just don't even fathom the possibility of that. It just doesn't exist it didn't exist for a while in the culture. So I think that just for me, how they intertwine is I think they both have the same theme of just like the different parts of me have the same theme of never fitting inside any of the boxes or labels that people constantly tell you. And so it's been like a lifelong continuing journey of trying to figure out like how to get out of the box, how to stay out of the box, and how to like figure out the path outside of the box that isn't really written. And so I guess moving on to the second question, which is really around like boxes and labels, but our society is built on norms. That's how most people see the world, and it shifts and changes. Sometimes it gets better, sometimes it gets worse. But a lot of it's heteronormative and neurotypical, and they shape, like in all of our stories, this notion of like how things are supposed to be. So I guess the question here is like, what you can bring up a couple, but like which expectations do you think have impacted you personally the most as you were growing up and going through both of the neurodivergent and queer journeys? And maybe we can go backwards and start with Eric this time.
Before you hear how I answered that question, let's jump in for a quick break. Hey everyone, whether you are joining from Shimmer for the first time, welcome, or you have been wrestling with your ADHD for years, I got something for you here. ADHD reWired's award-winning coaching and accountability groups have delivered immersive online coaching groups since 2014, designed to help you tackle things like shame and self-judgment, overcome time blindness, boost resilience and productivity, and build real self-care habits. Our 8-week summer sessions meet live 3 times a week in a small cohort, max 16 people. Plus, starting week 3, you'll have daily accountability check-ins with your accountability team, and twice a week, you'll meet with your team for solution-focused mastermind sessions. We've served over 1,200 ADHDers, and we've built a simple pre-registration process to make sure that you can make the decision on whether or not this is the right group for you. And what's involved in that? You're going to watch a 15-minute overview video, take a quick quiz, and then send me a 45-second intro clip, hopefully in 60 seconds or less. And all of these things are designed to help you decide if this group is the right fit for you. And you can sign up at coachingrewired.com. We are hosting only 2 registration events. Our kickoff event, which is on Wednesday, June 18th at 2 p.m. Central, which is noon Pacific, 3 Eastern. If you sign up at that event, you can get $200 off your enrollment fee. If you miss that one, your second chance to join us will be on Thursday, June 26th at 12 p.m. Central. That's 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 Eastern. Same great program, but at the full price. Complete pre-registration by 2 p.m. Central the day before your chosen event to secure your spot. To see the summer schedule, pricing, and more, head on over to coachingrewired.com. And if you can't do it now, what can you do now so you can be reminded later to go to coachingrewired.com? Maybe ask your smart speaker to remind you to go to coachingrewired.com. What's that website again? That's coachingrewired.com. You know the power of community. Come co-work with ADHD Rewired at adultstudyhall.com. With a 24/7 quiet co-working room and a variety of themed and facilitated sessions throughout the week, you'll be sure to find a co-working room that meets your needs. And on June 27th, you can join me for a special queer-themed Pomodoro dance party. We're going to be doing 2 50-minute work blocks, and after each work block, I become DJ Dopamine, and I'll be spinning some fabulous queer-themed dance music. You can check out what we do there at adultstudyhall.com, where you can work, clean, create, dance, and more. It's only $19.99 a month, or you can save big on annual plans at $150 for the year. Try it free for the first week. And I just wanted to actually share, I'm going off script here a little bit, or completely. So I've been kind of struggling with just my phone lately, and I really wanted to get this out this Friday. So I'm actually been working in Adult Study Hall. I'm actually working in 2 simultaneous sessions. I'm in 24/7 co-working space, and then I'm also in another facilitated one as well, with the primary purpose just to stay off my phone at hour stretches at a time with short breaks. So, all right, I just wanted to share that with you because I thought that was, I don't know, relatable. All right, let's get back to the panel.
Which expectations do you think have impacted you personally the most as you were growing up and going through both of the neurodivergent and queer journeys?
All right, I think, when I read this, I was like, oh man, I was married in a cisgendered marriage to a very cisgendered woman, and when I think back, and I'm divorced now, I've been divorced for about 5 years, and when I think back to like part of what sort of drew me to her, it was that she was very normal, quote unquote normal. Like my parents approved, right? She was a Jewish girl from my neighborhood, like from my area. So there was this whole okay, I found someone that I connect with who, like family approves of, and like I think back to that now, and I'm just like, oh, if I would have like owned myself, and I'd have been more comfortable with really who I am, like how different that probably like would have been. And so it's just been, it's been a journey. I think like for all of us, it's been a journey.
Yeah, no, definitely. I resonate with that so much. Actually, we can offline this later, Eric, but we've talked about this a bunch, and I'm actually not with my boyfriend anymore. So
okay, interesting.
A new update, but I might not double click in that yet. I'm going to pass it to Nate first.
I don't know how to follow that up. I don't know. I feel like a lot of the norms taught me to be like an actor and perform for survival and kind of like beat its chameleon and hide in plain sight. Like I said, like a previous question, like I was like the model student for teachers, like the ones they would brag about, like I want 10 of you in my class. But what the teachers and like what my parents didn't see was like me constantly having noise in my head and just not being able to concentrate and always fidgeting, can't sit still. And I didn't need discipline. I needed understanding. I was learning what was going on with me. And I think there was like this pressure for me, and it's more so, I think it's a heteronorm, but also like a cultural norm for me. This pressure to be the man of the house. I was a kid. I didn't want that role. I didn't ask for that. But I didn't feel like I was the boy that my parents expected me to be. Like I didn't move with that kind of confidence or hardness. I was kind of like the gentle, curious, sensitive kid, and I was punished for it often. And I just felt really like misunderstood. And I felt like the world was just kind of trying to overwrite me. So at least hetero and neurotypical standards told me who I should be and made me feel kind of like defective for not measuring up. But I've learned that rejecting the expectations is kind of like a liberation. like not just rebellion, but it's also healing. It's saying I'm enough as I am, even if I don't understand me, if you don't understand me. And it kind of took me a while to say and believe those words because I always thought I wasn't enough. And I had to mask all these parts of me to be normal and be this person to fit in.
Yeah. Oof. Definitely hit in many ways, especially the being normal. And Coach Meg, you want to go?
Yeah. So growing up in rural, conservative Ohio, I kind of feel like there weren't really other scripts available to me. So it was like I was playing this small town script, not really knowing that there was another one available. And actually, queerness and just being gay, that was on my radar before. Growing up in the early 90s. Actually lost a family member to AIDS. And so, like, at a very young age, I also had understood that if you're gay, you get AIDS and you die. And I was going to church and, hearing like, oh, that's a sin. So, not only was there really not any other option of a script, but also just the fact that this other potential script was totally dangerous and, seen as like shameful or perhaps like life threatening, or at least when I was a kid, that's what the media was portraying. I grew up dating guys. And when I finally, did allow myself to explore dating women, and like my family just did not get it. They were like, but you were dating guys before. I really don't understand. And that was really hard to say, okay, yeah, but like I feel like I just can't anymore. So kind of once being free and out of that was really hard to go back and explain that there was a new world that was constructed for me, and I didn't want to follow the script that.
Yeah, I resonate with that so much. I think every time I'm dating a guy, my parents get excited that I'm straight again. And they'll literally say that. And I was like, that's not how it works. But
I had a really similar experience. After I got divorced, I kind of came out to my parents. And then when I started dating this girl, my dad goes, wait, so does that mean you don't like guys? I was like, oh, Dad.
yeah. I think for me, this is such a hard question because I feel like every stage of my life, like every role that I've had to play, I feel like I get there and the expectation of what that role looks like in all of the examples is like nothing similar to how I operate. But because it's new to me, I don't know, being a founder / CEO or like the last job I had, like every step of the way, it felt like the road that was in front of me was like not how I would do it, but being new to it and just do it the way that everyone else does. And then it takes like so much effort to like break out of it. And it's not just even effort, but also just confidence and a little bit of like audacity because you're going to probably scare people. And so I think for me, it's really this like theme of like when I enter a situation, my first thought is to like adapt and like copy and just like fit myself into how other people do it. And I've been recently on this journey because I realized that I have been doing this in my relationships as well. I think with all of my relationships, I become a different person. The part that is like more palatable to them and that they're going to like more. And so I'm actually currently trying to work through that to figure out like underneath it all, like what is truly Chris. And it really is this letting go of and trying to break free of all of these expectations. And also the whole, like when you've spent your whole life just getting affirmation for doing things the way that people expect you to. And you start to just like in the wiring in your brain or in my brain just starts to do that automatically. So I'm trying to unlearn that, the theme across of it all. So let's hop into the next question, which I know we've touched on a lot already, and it's around masking. So definition wise, kind of just hiding parts of ourselves to fit in or to feel safe. And it's talked a lot about in the ADHD community, but specifically at this intersection, what does that process look like for you and how have you navigated masking? And I'll throw a zinger in there and go middle first. I think it's Nate, if I can remember even where the middle was, but
It's me. Yeah, so I got my ADHD diagnosis in 2022, and then I came out as queer in 2023, and also got my autism diagnosis in 2023. So I've kind of spent like my entire life masking, but not knowing I was actually doing it. And sometimes like I still find myself automatically doing it just because it's become something I just do. But like I scan every room like a radar. Like, can I be soft here? Can I talk about what I love without being called weird or worse? I still rehearse conversations in my head before I speak. And sometimes I hate that. But, I even laugh at jokes like I don't understand. Not anymore. I don't do that as much because when people make a joke that's not funny to me, I just kind of stare at them or I just fake laugh, like very sarcastically. But it is what it is. And I think it's kind of like the same for my queerness, like especially as I got into like middle school, high school, I was like bullied like relentlessly. So I try to like bury my queerness under disguise of straightness that never really fit, kind of like a fake it till you make it, if you will. Like I would watch how other boys walked and talked and laughed, and I would copy them, kept my head down, even when it hurt. But unmasking now as an adult, now that I've discovered these things about me and know, like, have a name for it, unmasking now is more like an act of courage, not in like a big flashy way, but in like the quiet decisions I have, like stimming in public or saying, I don't understand without feeling shame, or using my they them pronouns when I introduce myself, even if people get met with confusion. So every time I unmask, I'm just reclaiming a piece of me.
That. And let's go, Coach Meg.
I love what you just said, Nathan. So, with the queerness, it was like just silence. That was my masking, right? So probably by end of high school, I realized that I was attracted to women, but just quiet about it. And then even when I moved to Spain, even though I felt like that part of me was more acceptable for me, I still did not feel okay to share it. So it was just quiet, just keep quiet, just keep silent, keep safe. But with the neurodivergence and I didn't even realize that that was a thing until actually with a colleague, just asked me, a teacher, like, oh, have you ever been diagnosed? I think that was after I like lost a bunch of exams, which is kind of like a big deal here in Spain. I guess it's a big deal, but whatever. Anyways, I think that the thing that I was constantly masking and like looking back at school, growing up, I was so sensitive. I felt things so deeply. And so when I was a kid, I used to pretend that I was like sick so that I could go to the nurse's office when something was upsetting me so that I could just like cry in peace because I did not want my classmates to be like, Kian's a cry baby. Like that was even worse, And so I think sometimes now there is still this piece of maybe just me holding back on excitement or like trying to tone myself down to make sure that I don't come across as like too much or just like out of control or something. When I'm like really excited about something or really interested in something, but I'm trying not to do that. I try to be in spaces where I just feel like I can be me and that I don't have to apologize about that. I don't have to, or like, even if someone asks me, that I would feel comfortable because I know that they're not judging me. Not always possible, right? But I try to exist in those spaces where I can just be me.
Yeah, the spaces are so important. Oh, there's a whole conversation I want to have there, but on to you, Eric.
Oh, so many directions that I want to go with this question.
I know, right?
I think part of it is as I said before, that this realization that I had been wearing so many layers of masks. And part of sort of that discovery happened because I became like over the last, I think it was about a year and maybe 15 months ago, I sort of just hit this wall and I was just like the level of burnout that I was actually experiencing was, it was so challenging. I was just struggling with just doing a lot of basic things. And after I got divorced, I decided that I wanted to come out as bisexual, and I did so on my podcast. partially because I'm like, where is the representation for bisexual men? I'm like, you know what? There isn't enough. I'm going to be one of them. And like, it is, it's like, I think like a lot of people will say this when they come out later in life. It's like, I wish I didn't wait so long, and I was out with my ex-wife. I was, all partners that I've had, they've known. And one of the things that really sort of affirmed my queerness, especially, was so the person I'm dating right now, who is also queer, she made it so clear to me that she didn't accept me because I was queer. She loved me because I was queer. And like feeling, and I remember that like first moment where I really, really felt that for her and from her, and like it just, I fell into kind of a ball of tears because it was like I can never go back to just being accepted again, right? It's like it is the difference between being accepted and being supported and loved for that is miles apart. It's not even like in the same continent. I don't know, like so. I find that the more, and I think for so many of us, we stuff parts of who we are down. And I think the more I am just like, F that, I am done doing that. The more I just feel my, like, more of who I truly am become like awakening and becoming alive. And it feels fabulous.
I feel like every time I talk to you or see you, you're like 30,000 steps ahead of the last time I saw you, like on your journey. I think it's
beautiful. Exhausting though, because I'm constantly working on myself. And I gotta tell you, sometimes I just want a vacation from working on myself.
I feel that so hard. I really love what you said about moving from like being accepted to celebrated. It's been something I've been thinking about a lot as well. I think for me, from the masking perspective, I was thinking about something similar. It's like, I think for both of those journeys and even the intersection of it, it's like, for me, been a journey of like going from masking to unmasking, which like sounds nice. But then once you get to unmasking, I realized there's like moving from unmasking to like actual like expression and like celebration of the thing that you were shamed for before. And for me, for example, with ADHD, I think my whole life has just been people that tell me to like stop asking so many questions, stop talking so much, stop being so loud, like stop distracting other people, like too many ideas. Like it was just like a lot and people were constantly trying to push it smaller. And I think that there was an unmasking after I got diagnosed where I started to become more myself. And actually people who met me was like, I feel after you got your diagnosis, you became more ADHD. And I was like, yeah, I think that's just me. I had just been suppressing it for a really long time.
Yep.
And then I think then moving forward from that part of that journey, from going from unmasking to like expression and celebration, like now I feel like literally part of my job is to like yap about my ADHD and talk about it online and like be more vulnerable and be myself, and to also just create an organization and like a team where other people also feel comfortable being whatever the like too much version of that looks like, and it looks like for different people. And so that has really became my strength, but it's been such a long journey to go from this is the thing that I've been shamed for to like this is the thing that like I kind of feel comfortable showing people, to like this is my thing, and you either like it or you don't, and if you don't like it, then maybe you should just not be in front like listening to me do this. So it's like very liberating, and I think there's so many different variables and elements that need to continue going through that process, and it kind of ebbs and flows throughout your life as well, because I keep discovering new things that I have been that I've been masking, and I'm just like, oh, like this thing is here and I've been shaming myself for it and I didn't even realize, and the weirdest things just trigger that. Okay, let's move on to the next one. So I know everyone's in different places and countries, but regardless of kind of where we're at, there is a lot of uncertainty in the world, and especially in the US, which has an impact on the world politically, socially, personally. So the question I want to ask, and feel free to share whatever context you need to work up to that, is how do you personally stay grounded in being proud of yourself and pride in general when the world feels a little bit heavy? I'll kick it to you, Eric, first.
Well, thanks for including this question. It's been a lot. It really has. It's been a lot. When immediately right after our the current president was elected, my 13-year-old neurodivergent son says to me in earnestness, 'cause I have a bisexual pride like magnet sticker on my car, and he asked, "Dad, do you think you need to take that off now that he was elected?" And it just broke my heart. Like it broke my heart. And I think just the marginalization, I have a next door neighbor who very, very nice person, also supports Trump. And we would, in his first presidency, we would have these conversations of different ideas. And I hadn't seen him until maybe about 2 weeks ago, just because, in Chicago it's cold out and we kind of all stay indoors until it gets nice out. And I kind of said to him, like, I can't have this conversation with you anymore. Like, if you are still supporting him, like you are actually supporting someone who is actually wanting to criminalize who I am and many of my friends. And especially for people who identify as trans, I mean, it's gut wrenching. And as someone who is not really practicing, but someone who's raised Jewish, like I see all of what is happening now in such stark parallel to what happened in World War II. And just like during World War II, it was trans people who were the first targets, right? And it's happening again. And I think that like this is not even to me about differing ideas. I saw something yesterday online that basically said if you look at all of history, that the oppressed group, the marginalized group, people who are against them are always on the wrong side of history. And I carry a heavy heart with what has been happening right now.
And how do you hold in, maybe to end it on, or to add
Sure. No, thank you. How to hold on to pride and joy. Yeah. Well, I took 2 weeks ago, I took my son to a pride parade. And I did that for the first time, not last year because I was sick, but the year prior for the first time. And it was wonderful and it was joyous. But I also noticed that this year I was more vigilant at the parade. So while I'm celebrating, I'm not backing down from fear, but there's definitely an element of fear there. So yeah, it's like I'm not going to sugarcoat this with the toxic positivity because it's not.
Really. And being here too.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Maybe we'll head over to Coach Meg.
Yeah, I think for me, there are a lot of things that I'm living on the other side of the ocean in a sense. I mean, Spain is it was a third country to pass gay marriage back in 2005. And so as far as human rights are concerned, I think just it's a given. And so to see a place where I grew up where DEI is being stripped from companies and people are scared. And I understand that. And I think there's another part of me too that just knows, and kind of as Eric has said, I also have privilege here, right? Not as, and I can't imagine what trans folks are going through right now. But I think just in general, it's a time where we have to be really careful. I think we have to keep having, like the conversation that we're having today is so important. And we need to keep having conversations like this. And I think that maybe some people are, folks that maybe don't belong to the community or folks that do are afraid to have this kind of conversation right now. And I think that's the worst thing that we can do. And I think that one of the best things that we can do to hold on to joy, even in this hard time, is to continue to connect, to continue to hear each other's stories, to continue to lift each other up, to continue to support each other. And that's where we're going to find strength. That's where we're going to find joy.
Yeah, I love that. So well said. Thank you for sharing. And Nate, if you'd like to add to that.
Yeah. So I'll be honest, some days I don't feel pride or joy. I think so that's important to say sometimes because joy isn't always accessible when the weight of the world's like pressing on your chest. There are days when the headlines just feel like a direct attack, or days where being Black, queer, neurodivergent, and non-binary don't feel like pride. It just feels like a target on my back. And me coming from like a culture and the faith that didn't really make space for me, I kind of felt like nothing, like I was just an abomination, or that me being neurodivergent was only something for white kids, which is what my mom used to tell me. So like sometimes I don't feel that joy, sometimes I don't feel that pride, and those are the days that are hard sometimes. But now I have like a whole different definition of pride. Like for me, it isn't like waving flags or going parades. It's like sacred work, the work I've been doing to be me and be myself, and choosing to love the parts of me that I was taught to stay hidden. So I want to hold on to that joy through art, through creating, through sharing my story, not just where I'm trying to survive. I want to thrive. We all need to thrive. Just surrounding myself with those people who see me like the real me, and who let me exist without question and explanation. That kind of brings back that joy on those days where I like don't feel it.
Chris, can I add one more thing to this?
Yeah, go for it.
I think we hear the words pride and joy often paired together, but I think that pride under the queer umbrella has a very different meaning. It's to me, I almost think the question would make more sense if it was, how do you hold pride and courage when the external environment feels as heavy as it does? Right? Because it's like it's continuing to do these kinds of things even when it's may actually be riskier to do.
Yeah, no, 100%. Actually, just last night I was having a conversation with a friend about exactly this, and I think we kind of boiled it down to like all of this like comes like why it matters is that it just comes down like to the word fear. Just there's fear for individual safety, collective or community safety. There's fear for the future and what the ripple effect will look like. And I think exactly what you said, Eric. I think the way that I deal with it is I feel like the rebellion against that is just continuing to show up despite it, and to have the courage to do that, especially when any of us like feel like we're in a more safe or privileged space to do that when other people can't. And so, yeah, I think just showing up in community, showing up and having these conversations, speaking up, and like, I don't know, like hitting send on, hitting share, like post on that video, even when it's like scary, and just when you can't, doing what you can, and also respecting that not everyone can. And so just really continuing to show up and continuing to like push ourselves to be ourselves, because I think the worst thing that can happen is when everyone just takes a step back and then they win. So really just, yeah, for me, it's really community is the first biggest one, just being in community, and then also just taking the action that you can, and you're willing to, and you're in a safe space to be able to do so. Okay.
And just really quickly to add to, I think that like back in the 60s or something, there was an advocacy group that it was personal rights in defense and education. And so just that idea that it is not just about this celebration, but it's educating ourselves, it's defending our rights as humans.
Yeah, 100%. Just on the quick time check, maybe we can skip the next question. And let's talk a little bit about community. I think it's an important one given the conversation we just had. So we know that community and just sticking with each other and being there for each other is so important, both as someone who's queer, but also someone who's neurodivergent in these cultures and in the intersection of these cultures. I'm curious for each one of you, if you can just share from your experience, either in the past or currently, like which communities have you been involved in, are important for you, and will also, if they are something that people can join, we can also drop the links afterwards as well. So maybe we'll start with...
So I feel like I'm in all the communities. I'm always doing stuff within the queer community, neurodivergent community, but I kind of use my Instagram platform to like bridge those two together and kind of talk about it from a Black perspective. Because obviously I grew up not really having the education or language for this. So I try to share as much as I can, just parts of myself, my experiences through social media. And it's been something that's been very helpful for people, which I'm grateful for. And it's really connected me to a lot of people. So we're not like in solitude or isolating, because I know how isolating it is to feel when you're like the only one. And I spent a lot of years in that loneliness, and I don't want anyone else to have to earn some type of humanity just because they're queer or neurodivergent. So I want community to be where we can just unmask and be unapologetic. And that's kind of where the healing happens.
I'm dropping your Instagram in the chat.
Mm.
If I can find the community while you guys are speaking, I will drop them in the chat. But if I cannot find it in the moment, I will drop them afterwards in the email, and I will pop it over next.
So as far as in the ADHD community, my basically all my online business has been community based, right? Because I find that there's nothing more sort of healing and shame disarming than doing this kind of stuff in community, being able to see ourselves in others, to be able to grow and struggle with each other is such an important thing. Because I think that, I think when I used to do primary, and I still do one-on-one stuff now, but like when I used to do just one-on-one stuff, I had this kind of feeling that like even though the clients I was working with would relate to what I was saying, I was still like I was the therapist, and so it's like, yeah, I'm saying these things, and but it's like when you have a whole group of people who are like sharing these things and having these me toos for these things that seem so like nuanced and like so sort of specific and yet also so generalizable and relatable, it's so helpful. So I have my ADHD reWired coaching and accountability groups, which has been kind of my flagship program that I've been doing for 11 years. We have a whole like alumni community for ongoing support, and and we do bring up sort of queer related issues in there. I also have a co-working community called Adult Study Hall, and because I just think it's doing things with other people like yourself is so powerful. I have also been trying to get more involved in doing sort of advocacy and community-based stuff that's queer-focused, and I've been sort of stirring around the idea in my head for a while, like, what could I do specifically for bisexual men? Because I feel that there's not a lot out there specifically for bisexual men. So, yeah, maybe if you heard me say this, you're like, yes, please do something, shoot me a line and let me know that you would be interested in maybe putting something together.
Awesome. Thank you. I dropped that link, but if there's other links, feel free to drop that as well.
Thanks.
And I'll pop it over to Coach Meg.
So I'm a part of Shimmer. So that's an awesome community. Lots of ADHDers, get to work with lots of ADHDers and coach ADHDers every day. And recently just started creating content, with the idea of connecting with others, making helping others feel seen. I found that to be like just a fun and kind of creative way to connect with folks. And I'm kind of like all over the place, which, of course. So I'm also part of an LGBT community here in Barcelona. I serve on a global inclusion council for another platform. So all over the globe, of course.
And when you say you started creating content, is it the Instagram there, or is there some other link that's on me?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Love to hear all of that. I have a few things. So I am currently doing an ADHD Pride mini-series on my Instagram. So definitely Instagram is a big one for community. The other one I want to plug for community is Neurodivergent. It's a conference-ish, like conference sounds boring. It's less boring than that. It's a really fun kind of neurodivergent event. They did it for the first time ever this past year, and it was really just super awesome. It was not conference vibes. It was more chill vibes for the neurodivergent community. And actually, Trina, who's on our team, is one of the organizers there as well. So the link is there. Great. And then the other thing is Shimmer's actually planning something new that currently there's only a wait list. So it's kind of a top secret. So I'll drop the link as well. And then obviously, if you're here, you know that we do events. And then the other thing I wanted to say is recently, really spontaneously, me and two friends started a podcast, and it's 3 queer, hyperactive women. And we talk about all sorts of topics. And I think there's like a couple of episodes that are just about queerness and ADHD. So I'll drop all of that there. Those are kind of like, it's interesting because the main communities I'm in are all communities that kind of just started as like a couple of people just saying a thing and then realizing there was a gap, and then it just quickly balloons into a bunch of other things and events and sometimes companies. So true ADHD style, but really is just surrounding myself with people who just are related to certain parts of my personal intersectionality. and continuing to just come to events like this. Right, let me do a time check. Okay, we have 2 minutes left, so I'm going to broach a new question. Maybe if we want to just, let's do maybe just like leave a max 2 sentence. It can be thought, it can be advice, it can be like an affirmation, like whatever each one of you wants to leave just the audience to walk away with after this conversation. And I know no one has thought about this yet except for me. Not even me, sorry, not even except. So if does anyone look like they're ready to go? Okay, Meg, go for it.
I'm ready to go. These are conversations that we need to have. These are stories that we need to hear. And, don't be afraid of lifting that up or saying something wrong. Have the conversation. Listen. Ask. That's it.
I love it. I'll pop it over to Nate. Looks ready.
I'm ready. If there are any allies on here, I just want to say, show up when it's not convenient. If you want to be an ally to our communities, you have to be okay with being uncomfortable and listen, like really listen. So that's all I got to say.
Eric.
The first thing that came to mind as the bi guy is that bisexuality is not a phase. And I think that's one of the most like sometimes we get that both from the straight community as well as within the queer community, right? It's like, well, just make a choice, just pick one, right? It's like, no, I picked both. I pick all of the above. So yeah, just that openness and inclusion I think is really important. And just know that there are absolutely people out there that love you for exactly who you are with no masks on.
Yeah, 100%. I think for me, it really is that your whole self, our whole selves, all of our whole selves are not too much. They're not too anything. It's really beautiful and unique. And I think in moments where you feel like you're shrinking yourself, it's not on you. It's really on the spaces and the environment that we're in. And so for allies, yeah, just noticing when people are shrinking themselves, noticing when people feel uncomfortable, and using that safety and privilege you have to help be that safe space for people. Thank you. Thank you, all of you, for being awesome panelists. And thank you to the entire audience for being awesome audiences and also just really being vulnerable and open and supportive in the chat as well. We've had some really important and tough conversations and really hope that this is just the beginning of it. And so we'll send out ways to connect with all of us afterwards. But I know we're already a minute over. So thank you all for coming, and hopefully you have an awesome rest of your Friday and weekend.
Wow, that was a really fun and incredible conversation. Thank you so much, Nathan, Meg, and of course, Chris from Shimmer, for sharing your stories, your wisdom, and your courageous honesty. Now, today, we unpacked so much: the masks we wear, the power of unmasking, the resilience it takes to be both neurodivergent and queer in a world that still isn't built for us, and the fierce joy of finding our people. If there's one thing I really hope you take away, it's that your whole self, every brilliant, messy, beautiful piece belongs. You don't have to shrink, apologize, or wait for permission to be seen. You deserve support, community, and a space to thrive exactly as you are. If you'd like to keep that momentum going, head on over to coachingrewired.com and join us this summer for the 41st season of our coaching and accountability groups, where we've created a community helping people just like you turn insight into action, shame into self-compassion, isolation into connection, all while helping you gain the skills to work with your ADHD brain to get more done without forgetting the importance of also having fun. Thanks so much for listening. Happy Pride, everyone. Be kind to yourself, show up for each other, and I'll catch you next time, right here on ADHD Rewired.